So, just in time to get this match started, I do need to ping the rule. Okay, so with that out of the way, I think, where is the camera? Yeah, so first couple of moves of game number 1 in this match. Knight c2, king to b3 by IMakeManyMistakes, and Artem Medvedev goes for the unusual bishop to e1. Now, this setup is possible. It's quite unusual, but especially with rook g6, queen to a3, this is playable for both sides. Knight to d4, rook to b6, rook 1 to g3 played here by Artem. And okay, black can choose to trade on g6 if they want, but knight e3 is also a move. Just hitting the f1 bishop, and after king to h3, I am kind of worried that knight df1 is pretty strong for black. I mean, it's the queen takes, knight takes, and rook takes a3, but then there's bishop takes. So I guess black would be fine there. Still has the rook pair. Yeah, it would have been fancy if you had rook takes a3, but the queen is protected, and you don't really have a move. So if you play knight c1 first, then of course knight g3. And okay, king takes, but also king takes, and black is just so much better. I don't think this works out with king to h3 here. Yeah, it looks like IMakeManyMistakes just got a really nice position out of the opening. With rook to b6 possible in this opening line, it's not always available, but here it was. Knight f1, rook 3 to g5. Now this is on the bishop's diagonal, so you always have to be a bit careful with that. But I think it's an okay move. Just need to protect the rook. Also, the knight was pinned at the moment, not after the queen moves. But more or less forced to trade, I guess. Yeah, otherwise you just have to vacate the 6th rank, which is something you really don't want to do. Hey Miguel, welcome to the Twitch chat as well. This position looks fairly pleasant for black to play. But okay, material-wise we are still fairly even. Rook takes b6 is just the natural move. I don't see what else could he be thinking about. No, this does not look good for white. I do agree with that. I'm not sure why black is spending time on this move. Perhaps wanting to find a way out of knight takes c1, because that would make sense to play now. So knight c1, king d4. And okay, black is still a bit better, but white has something to play for still. Hello Flynn as well. Welcome to the chat. We are just watching the first game of this match between IMakeManyMistakes and Artem Medvedev. So far, well, Mikhail, bishop e1 is actually kind of theory. I have looked at it once, but I mean, I definitely did not choose to use that opening line. But yeah, it is theory, but very unusual indeed. Knight to d5 played here, and it looks like black is just getting the upper hand. Okay, bishop a5 was played, but it's not really a threat. You can't capture. Now just queen takes bishop is coming. White is so underdeveloped here. And the queen has nothing to do. You can play king to g4. Okay, bishop e1 back, just preserving the material, but black is making a run for it. And no queen takes f1. Queen takes f1 was available earlier on. Yeah, I guess. But even then, black is just completely winning. Oh, even king to d6. You can play this now, so should be a fairly quick end to the game here. Follow up with rook to b8 or queen c8 actually, and GG's. Okay, so I make many mistakes. Winning the first game with the black pieces here. Now he has white, so let's see what we get. King g3, symmetry so far. And knight c2, knight f2 on the third move. So, king g5, rook to b6, rook to f5, and we enter this fairly theorized middle game. Okay, queen to h7. Actually, I'm surprised by that, because rook to f5 is the most common theory in this opening line. Bishop to b2 would be natural development. And there you go for... Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for it, of course. In most of these opening lines, black goes for queen to a7 at some point. And you do prevent that. If black doesn't claim the 5th rank, well, okay, you can play rook f5 later on. With the option of trading on g1. It does get the knight a bit off out of the game for now, but in general you do want to keep the queen in middle games. And there's still so much material on the board. A major piece can be really useful. So there is no threat of capturing this rook just yet. You can play king to b4 if you want. Just follow up with rook c5. It's a fairly basic plan, but it's still pretty solid. Yeah, at least this is a much better known line. I do agree with you, Mikhail. Knight to b3 here is... I guess it's okay. You can play knight to d4, force a trade. Also threatening, of course, rook takes e2. There is bishop f1 then, but even so. White might get king to h6. Not just might. It's just unavoidable now. Would put some pressure on the 6th rank. But then again, you can just solve that by playing king to b4, if you want, for example. Mikhail suggests rook to e6 in this position earlier on. Yeah, perhaps. Knight to c5, king to h6, king to b6. Now the point... I need to sneeze. The point of this is, of course, king to h7, the queen would hang, and you have this diagonal. So, rook to f7, move the bishop, also, yeah, bishop e4, and then you can recapture if you want. But even then, this diagonal is pretty strong. So, white does need to be careful there. Yeah, development is not too easy. Rook to f7 is played indeed. And what do you go for? Rook e2. Just aiming to develop rook to e8, but how strong of a threat is bishop f1, pinning the rook? I think that's pretty solid for white. So you don't really want to capture the knight right now. It would just incapacitate your major piece. Other than that, though, not sure what other good moves there are for black in this position. White does threaten to move the bishop at some point, protect the queen, try to play king h7. Perhaps not right away, but it's always a threat that black needs to be aware of. Queen to c8 is a pretty solid move, I guess. I'm going for king to a6, perhaps. Knight to b7. Actually, that looks pretty good. So what do you do about that? Black definitely has the better knight placement. Here you just go rook takes. I am surprised he actually goes for that, by the way. Black is definitely a lot better. I do agree. This rook is still stuck below the bishop. So after king to b6, king to h7, just go knight to b7, right? And what can white do? I don't think there's much left in this position. Unfortunately so. Artem Medvedev might be taking this one with the black pieces. Yeah, actually this is just game over. No questions asked. You can try this, but it's just a piece. Rook e7 missed by white earlier. When? I'm not sure when rook e7 was a thing. But yeah, okay. So Artem Medvedev wins the second game. And opens with bishop symmetry this time. I'm not sure if we saw knight c2 in the opening in the previous game when Artem had the white pieces. Now goes for bishop d4 and rook h2 on the third move. Mistakes loves to play this theory. Bishop sacrifice temporarily at least, but then coming with a strong attack on the center again. So this is pretty similar to some 3 queen h4 theory lines. But yeah, knight captures and then king takes. No, do you play this apparently? I'm not too aware of the theory here. Actually, if king takes, there would just be knight takes d4. So that's not a good idea. Bishop takes b2 seems reasonable. Queen takes. Or rook takes. Should probably recapture with at least one of the pieces. Mikhail didn't expect Artem Medvedev to know this line. Well, okay. King to d5. The king would be slightly misplaced, at least compared to the major pieces, but you do get the diagonal, so just preventing bishop g2. And okay, you have knight to c5, knight to e6 kind of threats. So I think after king d5 is kind of the main line here. Rook g6, knight, king f4 to stop knight e6. But even then, also there are a couple of minor pieces that might be hanging on the first rank. Stuff like that. And I think black should be doing fine here. A king to c5? I am surprised about king to c5 here. Rook g6 is the natural continuation. Rook h6 though, I guess also works. Not sure what the difference should be. And I make many mistakes just going for knight to a5, knight to c6. Interesting variation. Now one slight problem is that at some point you want to develop this rook, but you do not have the g7 square available. So if you play this, it's kind of useless because knight c6 is coming anyway. You can play rook to g8 if you want. But even then, it might not be ideal. Knight to d4 played by Artem. And if knight c6, okay, you capture. This and then rook h7. And then king takes, and black is just so much better. If the bishop doesn't play a role here in this endgame, then it's just positionally should be winning for black. Because this piece is just completely stuck on f1. There's not much use in putting it on the diagonal now, at least. You've already committed to knight to d4, so might as well just capture the piece. Otherwise, if you waste a move, it's just knight captures even. Knight c2. Okay, so allowing this, but what you do achieve with knight to d4 is that you allow rook to g7. So I guess the point is, if black goes for king to b6 right away, then white gets the block on the 7th rank, and these two pieces are slightly misplaced. Not able to help right away, at least. But you get rook f1. Rook f1, queen to a2, maybe? And that would actually be a really fancy block on the 5th rank. Yeah, so rook f1 played indeed, with rook g7. If white advances, you can even play this, queen to a2, and then all of these three squares are covered. I guess it's a reasonable move. Of course, knight takes c6 can be played by white, but there's not much you can do to prevent that. Welcome, Angelaros. Nice to see everyone in the Twitch chat. We are just watching the third game from this match between IMakeManyMistakes and Artem Medvedev. Both players have a single point so far. As we see, rook f8 on the board by mistakes here. So yeah, you cannot play this right away because just the g7 rook would be hanging. But perhaps at some point knight to b5 or knight to c6 can be a threat. King to d5 first. And are you going to develop the rook like this? Perhaps it's an idea for white to double up if black tries to play rook c8, rook to c7. Perhaps not so much if this is played, but yeah, I guess rook to d7, rook to... Sorry about that. If rook to b7, rook to d7, you can capture on c6, but then just rook to c7 as well. And then what? Do you just play king to d6? No, because h8 is not available. That's a bit of an issue, that the queen is controlling this square. So you need an extra move if you want to use the second rook. That can be trouble. Wait, do you play this? King to b7 and rook to h8. And now rook, yeah, double rooks. Because otherwise queen to a8 is just game over. So you need to double up. Luckily the knight is guarding the a7 square as well. So you can't play queen to a7, queen to b8. And actually it looks like yeah, white is holding on. Rook to e8. And black is kind of stuck here. I'll just play this. Queen is not going anywhere, unfortunately. This is a piece, though. Artem Medvedev also messing up a bit in the time scramble. I guess maybe the best shot would have been this. This doesn't go anywhere. Now, okay, there is no queen to b8 either. So perhaps we are looking at a drawn endgame. Oh dear. There goes the rook. Artem Medvedev low on time, but just picked up the major piece and should be winning now. Goes there, knight to b6, and that's game over. So Artem, I don't know how he managed to win the rook here, but I guess in this position, black has no other option than to resign. So in the time scramble, Artem Medvedev manages to win this game with the white pieces. And I guess we are seeing a break. So the score is 2-1 in favor of Artem, but Mistakes looks to be calling a break here, I think. Haven't heard anything from the players yet. Neither of them is on Discord at the moment. Okay, Artem Medvedev says a break. Yeah, called by who? I guess by Mistakes. He did just lose in the opening. Oh, not in the opening, I mean, but this time scramble, bit unfortunate for him, of course. Troubled Patsa says Mistakes has a low connection. Yeah. And that can be a bit troublesome to play with, especially if you're playing time scrambles. Meanwhile, Artem has perfect connection. So, okay. Let's have a look at the games. Game number 1. We did say that Bishop E1 was some kind of theory. It is pretty unusual. So unusual, in fact. Oh, my opening Explorer settings were a bit messed up. But yeah, top games all from 2018. This hasn't been played too often. King to c4, rook to g6 is completely fine. Queen to a3, knight to d4, rook to b6, and rook 1 g3, knight to e3, king to h3 is too tricky. This piece just falls. And what do you go for? Rook to g5, queen to a6, captures, and apparently this position is still fine, even though it's pretty hard to play. Yeah, so here probably just not capturing the bishop was better, apparently. King to h4 is the engine move. And I guess the point is there's no good way to develop the e3 knight with tempo. And this is not even a threat right away. So presumably white would still have been fine here. But after this, black just gets the knight in the center. Bishop to a5 doesn't do all that much. And yeah, that was queen to xf1 here, as Mikhail was suggesting. But even then, you can just play king to c5 right away. And black is just comfortably winning this one. After that, not much left in this game. It was just over at that point. So game number 2, Mistakes had the white pieces. Goes for this knight c2 line. Rook takes, king to g5, rook to b6 is all main line. Rook to f5, most common move here. Queen to c7 is fine, though it is slightly less common. Bishop b2 played, and okay, bishop g2 or bishop h3. Queen to a6, rook to f5 now. This is a fairly calm position. Knight to b3, king to b4, apparently both fine. Queen to g6 was played in this position. And engine thinks that rook e2 is fine, despite bishop f1. I mean, it's of course unpractical to play with, but the way white's pieces are developed, it's also not easy to make progress. Not against the bishop's diagonal. But yeah, Here we had knight to c5 on the board, king to h6, king to b5 was fine, rook to f7, queen c8, most natural move, of course. Just continuing development. And at this point, yeah, just giving up the queen, slightly surprising there. I make many mistakes. Must have seen that, but still went for it for some reason. And at that point, it's just game over. So, engine recommends either rook f8 or knight f4, apparently. Not sure about. Well, rook f8 is a fancy move, but it's not easy to see. Oh dear. Also, I'm not sure why this works, because you do not have king to g7. So, it's a bit of an empty threat, perhaps, if you can protect with the c2 rook. Engine line is knight d7 here, and black still looks comfortably winning. But yeah, knight f4. What's this supposed to do? King to a6, continue development. Oh, just guarding the... yeah, and then knight g6, knight to f8. And that would work, apparently. Oh yeah, then you would have a draw after knight f4. But if you don't protect the queen, then it's just game over for white. So unfortunately, I make many mistakes, lost that one with the white pieces, and lost the game with black right after as well. On bishop d4, and we had this rook h2 line by Artem Medvedev. Bishop to e4, queen takes, knight to b3, king to f3, this is theory. And okay, queen takes, slightly less common apparently. Rook g8, rook g6 are the main moves here, but this is still okay. And bishop takes b2. Apparently there's also bishop e3. Is there king takes? I doubt that is good, because yeah, just the bishop would be hanging. But bishop takes b2 apparently still mainline. Queen takes, king takes c3, king to d5. Although, king c5, both fine apparently. And I make many mistakes, just playing perfect theory so far. I'm slightly surprised to see that rook h6 is holding up to rook to g6 as well. But king h7 tells you didn't lose out on too much. Yeah, king h7 was just pretty unfortunate. I'm not sure why he went for that, because, I mean, if you don't see another alternative, you still shouldn't really go into something that loses. At least try to use the other pieces. Rook g6 would have been slightly more favorable, I think. And here, yeah, knight c6 right away. This just walked into ideas like queen to b8. Thanks, Mikkel. We do need to return to the game real quick. But yeah, rook to g7. f1 was hanging, king to e4. I did suggest queen to a2 in this position, which is currently the only move that holds an advantage. But we did see rook f8, king to d5, and here it's just a drawn. But knight to d4. White is actually winning here. It's just a matter of converting. This is hard. Apparently doubling up is not the correct idea. Or is it? Just 96, knight b5. I'm just going after the rook right away. Yeah, because there was no immediate threat. You can just play knight to b5 and capture the rook, depending on what is possible. But okay, I guess at this point, still winning. Yeah, white did hang the piece there, but even then, queen takes e8, captures, and this was winning for black. But time scramble and both players missed it. So in the end, well, black just hung their rook, and at that point it was a pretty quick mate as well. Okay, so I was told that both players have continued, So we need to get back to the games. Yeah, so I make many mistakes with the white pieces. Goes for the same opening line as we saw in the second game. King to g5, rook to b6, and this time rook f5 instead of queen to h7. Just following the main line theory. Queen to a6, bishop g2, bishop a3. Still fairly calm in this position. Queen to h7. There are ideas of bishop e4 if bishop b2 is played, but if bishop a3, it doesn't make so much sense. Queen to g6, king to b5, rook to f7, and this is the current position. The point is that g1 might be hanging. It does go for the capture. King to h6, you can return the bishop to d4. Yeah, I guess it's a rook trade. Not sure what to make of this position. Both players can maintain their diagonals at least. Even if queen to g6 back, then just, well, bishop d4 here for black is completely reasonable. Don't really want to hang this piece on g1. And that would be unnecessary, to say the least. Now, real quick. Yep, okay. Okay, so what did we have? Yeah, bishop d4, but d2 was still hanging. And yeah. Miko suggests rook to d6 after queen takes d2. Which is reasonable, I guess. And bishop b2 was played though. Troubled Patso says you have to capture the bishop if you get the chance. Yeah, but I mean, white is doing fine in this position. If you can hold it, then you can use the knight advantage at some point. Knight to d5 can be a pretty strong threat. Depends on the position though, because you do block the bishop's diagonal. Knight to d5 right away? Yeah, but king to c6, right? So, how strong of a move is that? King to c6, king to g6, rook to b7. If king h7, then you just go for this. And queen to b2. And okay, actually, I do need to be careful not to hang the bishop, perhaps. Even if king c6 is pretty strong. Hey everyone in the Twitch chat, by the way. We have a 1-minute delay on the stream, for those of you who are not aware. Just to make sure that nobody can stream snipe me. Yes, okay, so we do see rook to b7 played, king h7, and now you have to be careful not to hang this piece. So move the bishop first. Oh no, that's not good. Queen takes b2, and these two squares are covered. So yeah, that was a bit of a screw up there by Artem. Definitely didn't want to hang the bishop. And okay, white does need to use quite some resources to defend here, but should still be fine. However, rook takes. Yeah, rook takes knight, and then bishop g2. So you can't play that either. No, it's just white winning this one. If they can get their technical issues sorted out. King to g7, Seems fine to me. Okay, queen h8. And black just flags in a losing position. So, the score is 2 each after 4 games. Artem, my voice is getting a bit, goes for his main line. Oh no, knight c1. He also frequently plays queen to d5 here, but more common move in general is knight c1, queen to h5, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes. I just see all the knights getting traded off. And this is kind of an equal middle game, even if white might have slightly favorable development. It is a theoretical draw. Queen to a4 is a nice variation. There's plenty of different moves. Queen to c3, queen to d4, queen to a7, all possible. But queen to a4 is also something. You play rook to e5, and presumably bishop g6. Rook f8 first. Michael says queen a4 is any good. Well, I actually disagree with that. Queen to a4 can be completely fine. I've used this one as specifically prepared against engine lines. Queen to a4 can just bring you a fairly quick draw if played correctly, which I think Mistakes is very well capable of. King to f5 right away though, and king to c5. I have to use the 5th rank as well. Yeah, this is the one issue with this opening line, is that maybe you allow white to just make a run for it. And then with queen to f7, rook to g6, and quite quickly it looks really scary for black there. Oh, bishop d5? I guess that's a move as well. Even so, if you go rook g6, rook to f6, whatever you do, white is kind of comfortable with these 3 major pieces, well developed. The e1 rook is completely misplaced. The a4 queen, not ideal either. And okay, white still has a solid bishop's diagonal, but rook g7 played, slowly just removing the pieces from the 5th rank. Okay, so rook g7, king to c5 here by black. And queen to g6. This looks pretty solid. Bishop d5 surprises the troubled putzer. Well, bishop d5, I mean, I did say I would go king c5 right away, but I guess white would have been better regardless of what black played there. Not too sure, actually, about the engine evaluation for this line. But look at the development. I mean, this is not something you get to see in most of these lines. So white is actually doing a great job here. There's nothing to stop king to g6 either. Maybe the threat of rook f1, but I mean, what is rook f1 if king h7 is uncontested? So, not much you can do there. Rook to e8 is a good move, I guess. Don't want to hang the piece, because if king to g6, then just the rook captures, and the queen is pinned. But on the other hand, if you try rook takes, then queen takes, and suddenly the g6 square is no longer available. So rook to e8 is a perfect move here by black. Just comes with an attack on f8. Actually, white might not be so happy anymore. Rook captures, queen captures, and suddenly black just has the upper hand. Out of nowhere. That's how these things go. Alright, after Medvedev is low on time, does he find a way to hold this? There's bishop h3 played. King to b6 perhaps even? Then you have bishop to b7. Bishop to b5. I was a bit wary to suggest that. If queen takes, king to g6, queen to b8. And you do have to be very attentive to calculate if that is working or not. But bishop to b7 now, perhaps just the most efficient way. Although, rook to g8. Well, okay, it still works, but this is just losing for white, unfortunately. Rook takes f6 is a nice tactic to just simplify the position. This, however, also works because rook takes and bishop to c8. If queen to b2, then rook to b6. GG. And looks like I make many mistakes. We'll just get a 3-2 lead in this series. Nice game. We'll definitely go back later to analyze that one. Just the opening and where it actually went wrong, because it's not all that clear. At least not to me at first sight. So, game number 6 in this match. I make many mistakes. We'll be sticking to his opening apparently. Just king g3 symmetry, knight c2. Rook to b6 by Artem Medvedev. Yeah, I mean, main line. And last time we saw something like bishop to a3, queen to a6, or at least queen a6 first. This time bishop b2, which is the main move, and queen to a7 or queen to a6. Bishop b5 was the only move last game, but still didn't hold eventually. Yeah, I mean, it was the best shot that white had. But, I mean, I just looked at the position for a few seconds and I thought it might not hold. So I didn't mention it, but I do agree that it was probably the best move. At least to stay alive. Even if you sacrificed the piece, you had to capture with the queen, and then white at least got the 7th rank. Bishop e4, main line here. Just attacking the rook, and king to b3 to defend. Really don't want to lose the piece. It would be way too early for that. Okay, how do you continue development? Knight to f4, knight to g6. There's also ideas of queen h7, g6, but we did see how that could cause complications on the 7th rank later on. So knight f4 and here. That's an option as well. Well, I often notice, okay, oops, this is a bit of an issue. The rooks are just getting forked. Yeah. Okay. So at that point, white just wins material. And there's no tricks left. But what we often see in these opening lines is that though white gets the better development out of the opening, has a really solid position, it's actually not that simple to come up with a plan on how to improve development after putting a piece on g6, playing king to h6, and then the 7th rank is often quite uncomfortable to get past if you're white. But here, unfortunately, after Medvedev just blundered this rook fork, and now it's just completely losing because bishop c6, covered by the queen, also allows this. Yeah, so don't give up the material unnecessarily. And I think this game is pretty much over. Just king to g6, king to h6, even if you'd like, but this is fine. Queen to a7, queen to h7, even just maintaining control over the 5th rank. Comfortable win here for I Make Many Mistakes. Looking to get a 4-2 lead in the series. King to f7. But yeah. I mean, as soon as black lost their rook, it was kind of game over. Rook captures, rook to g8. Rook c8, rook f8. And resign. Okay, resigning right away. That works as well. So, 4-2 in favor of I Make Many Mistakes. And are we going to rematch or not? I hope we are. Oh, did Mistakes leave again? We might be getting a second break. Artem claimed the break. Okay, so second break of the match. That is a thing that, in theory, both players can claim a break. But, yeah, I mean, the funny thing is we never had this until this year. So it was always just one player claiming a break. And this year we've had a whole string of matches where both players wanted a break. So, yeah, I guess it's a bit unfortunate, but we do have to wait for a little longer. Okay. Why don't you see King H3 lines, but I make many mistakes? Don't ask me. But anyways, we have a break, so we are just going to review this game. This was pretty interesting. After Medvedev had the white pieces in game number 5, and went for this main line, so up to here it's all theory. Rook to d8 played, king to b4, rook to g5. Queen to a4 is completely fine, unlike what Mikhail is suggesting. Rook to f8 played, and bishop to c6 in this variation does not work apparently. Just bishop c2, bishop b1, presumably something like that. Bishop c6 might cause a few issues, but apparently it should still be okay, even after this. King to c5 should have been completely fine. But bishop d5 first is tricky. Rook to g7 played. Perhaps not ideal, but yeah. It's always hard to read the computer evaluation. And I do kind of depend on it, because if I try to analyze this position myself, I will be thinking for quite a long time. The computer is always quite helpful. When doing the commentary at least. And analyzing games afterwards. But yeah, despite that this looks really nice for white, as we saw, rook to e8 later on did work out. It was the only move, of course. It's played. Rook captures, and bishop to b5. And Mikhail says that it would lose later on, but only to bishop c6, which is not the move you expect. You would expect just queen takes, and then it works, because then we get queen to b8. And okay, king to h7, and It's a technical draw, apparently. Though I am not too convinced that white would manage to hold on to this. You play this? No, you don't, of course. Rook g8. Oh wait, rook g8. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. But, okay, so you apparently needed to see that bishop c6 works here. Because bishop takes, king takes, and because you don't have this square available. Unfortunately, that just loses. But yeah, I mean, I would have expected queen captures, and then you have a chance to draw. So seeing bishop c6 here is actually really nice. Wait, bishop b5, bishop c6 being the only move. I will store that position, because that's a really nice puzzle. Let me go here. And just open another tab and add it to my study. Okay, so did they start? No, they didn't. Yeah, we just have to wait for a couple more minutes. This game started 9 minutes ago, so that means we still have at least 5 minutes to go for this break. There's not too much we can do about that, unfortunately. It's just gotta wait. Meanwhile, okay, here we go. So, game number 7 in this series. Artem Medvedev switching up his opening lines a bit. Knight c2, king to b3, king to h3. And rook to g6 here, it's more common to play rook to g8 in these opening lines. Basically, you transpose into a king h3 line. King to g4, though. Do you play rook takes e2? Would be slightly surprised by that. Queen to a5, perhaps? Rook takes e2. Okay, so I make many mistakes just going for the material. And right away. Now queen to a5 is a thing. And then rook f1. And okay, white is down a knight, but still comfortable. This is a more classic king h3 line. Trouble Putzer was asking for it, but I mean, this time Artem Medvedev has the white pieces, so you might want to poke mistakes if you want to see more of his traditional opening lines. I mean, I am surprised by knight f1. It's always a tricky move to play in these opening lines. Just allowing king to g4. And white actually has a splendid position. If you trade the bishop here, and just make a run for it, actually. Because what you're basically saying is that these two knights are not doing anything in the game. That's more or less the point. You can also go queen to e4, hitting the rook, and just solidifying your position. Also, rook f1 is presumably okay. White is just quite happy, actually, in this opening line. Yeah, I make many mistakes is just spending a lot of time in the opening here. Realizing that this is quite the positional advantage here for Artem Medvedev. Rook f1 played, suggests developing the rook to a more favorable open file. Knight of 1 is pretty dubious, I do think, by black. Tribal Putzer also agrees with me there. Oh, the rook f5. Just continue development. Yeah, so the point is that this knight is just completely useless, and then white has a splendid position. So, hey, Chess Live, thank you so much for the raid. I hope you had a nice stream as well. We are just watching game number 7, this is, of our World Championship match between Artem Medvedev and IMakeManyMistakes. So the score is 4-2 in favor of IMakeManyMistakes, but Artem does have a winning position here with the white pieces, so we might just get to see a score of 4-3. For everyone just joining, there is a 1-minute delay on the stream. God. No, I just spilled some water again. It's not the first time this happens, but yeah, need to clean that up a bit. Yay! Yeah, thanks so much for the raid again. But it's a bit hard to interact if you have the 1-minute delay on the stream. So unfortunately, I can't do much about that. But yeah, what were you streaming actually? Just some standard chess, I assume, of course. But anyways, back to this game. This is quite a fancy setup, actually. After king to h6, the rook is protected. Troll Patsa says that Mistakes is living up to his username. Well, perhaps. This is definitely just winning from white. I guess he thought that in this variation, knight of 1 would have been fine, but it's not. Here, you can go for rook takes g2. Knight takes, and just rook to g5. And after that, rook g7. Comfortable win for the white pieces. Okay, what did we have? Oh, rook. Okay, rook. Okay. Yeah, this works as well, of course. Still, the knight has no squares. Unfortunately, both of these would just be check, and rook g7 is coming. The only chance you have at defending is, for example, if you have the king on c5, and there would be no queen to g8, but then both pieces would have to defend the 8th rank, and you're completely misplaced here. So after queen to e4, queen to a8, this queen has no support on the 8th rank, and it's game over. Oh, that's unfortunate. I don't know if I have the shoutout command. I would have to actually check that. I have a shoutout command in the chat. Could use it for you, but I forgot what my commands were. That's a bit unfortunate. So I'll just check that in a different tab real quick. Oh goodness. I need... Yeah, this is not gonna work so quickly. Sorry that I can't do a shout out right now, but I guess everyone watching can just check out your stream as well if they want. My commands are disagreeing with me. I hope it's SO, but if it's not, then it's not. Oh, it is. Wait. That's nice. Okay, yeah, I thought I had changed the command to something else, but apparently I hadn't. So thanks so much for the raid as well. I'll check out your Twitch channel later on. Queen to h2. Okay, so we missed most of the opening here. King to g5. Rook to b6 would have been mainline, but king to b6, rook f6, and white does have a better position. The move is rook f6 here, though. Not king to h6, perhaps. Rook c7, rook g6. Okay. Queen to h7. Just doubling up for now. Queen h2. King to c5, covering the rook. At some point, we'll just play rook to b6, rook to b8, and perhaps bishop b2. Continuing development. Okay. Yeah, no problem. I just needed to figure out what the command was. But I don't have... I thought I had changed to exclamation mark shoutout, but apparently it was still SO. Okay, so knight c1, trading the bishops off the board. You do want to capture the f1 bishop as well. Otherwise, just bishop g2 might be a threat in the future. Knight f1 played indeed. And look at black's development here. This knight again, single knight advantage for white, but the knight is completely useless. Neither of these moves work, and otherwise it takes 2 moves to even reach d4, which is way too long, way too slow. So Artem Medvedev, I think, looking to equalize the score here after rook to b6. This is one happy position if you're black. And yeah, okay. White does cover the d6 square, but rook c6. And even if you go put a piece on b2, for example, black is completely winning this one. Knight to a2. Okay. So if you play rook c6, then knight to b4. But even then, just king to b6, knight captures, king to b7, rook to f8, queen to b8. And okay, actually might that hold? Well, presumably you would then play, white, you would play rook c8. Would you? No. Interesting. Actually, this line is funny to calculate. Hang on, what would happen if knight to b4? If you try to make a run for it, captures, captures, rook to f8, king on b7, queen to b8, queen to a2, and presumably you would just sit, play queen c8, and then capture on c6. But yeah, because rook g7 is not available. Yeah, okay. So it would have still been fine for black, as expected. Rook to b2. Artem Medvedev kind of wants to... has ambitions for the center. Does kind of invalidate the knight on a2. IMakeManyMistakes going to great lengths to protect that piece, but I don't think that's going to work out. Rook c2 has to be played. And yeah, okay, white is holding on to this position, but it's still not going to be enough. Captures, queen captures, and rook to e6. Reasonable enough. But this might run into queen to c3. Oh. Unfortunately, he misses queen to c3. Would have been really nice with the idea of queen to g7. Coming with a tempo here. Now, however, there is no such move. The knight is still stuck on a2. Knight c1 played. This knight is gonna be rerouted somewhere. Queen to f8. I need to move the queen. Okay, queen c3 now. Just coming with this idea. Could have played it earlier. Can still play it now though. Queen on b7 is a bit misplaced. You play queen to c8 right away. Pointless captures, but then queen captures. This just draws. And, well, okay, you have the knight though. Right, that's a really important point. Yeah, I guess white was able to simplify because with the remaining minor piece, you can just play for a win. And, well, okay, this does not work right away. You need to reroute the knight to h6 and then to g8. Took a while. Just play this to make sure that white is not pre-moving anything, and it's game over. So, in spite of what I thought was a comfortable position for black, IMakeManyMistakes manages to win that game. And now the score is 5-3. Artem Medvedev needs to win the next 2 games to force tiebreaks. If not, then he's out of the World Championship. This is a lower bracket match, so everything is on the line here. Completely different opening from what we saw in the previous games. On the board this time. Rook f5, rook to b3, knight f4. Is a move in a lot of openings, but it's slightly uncommon in this variation. We play rook g3. Actually, wait, knight f4 is pretty common here. And though there are definitely a lot of ways to play against this as black. Rook c5. Not unreasonable. And then you kind of ask for a trade. Yeah, I think rook c5 is probably the main move here. Also, point is that maybe you can capture on f1 if king to h3 would be played too early. King to a3 though. Not too sure about that move. But I guess it's fine actually. And bishop to d3. You could try to play queen takes f4, rook takes f4, rook takes d3. Is that a thing? Basically what you do is you sacrifice the queen for 2 minor pieces. But if you can use the minor pieces, then yeah. Hey Ferdi, it's not standard chess. It is Racing Kings. Do I have the exclamation mark? I hope my commands work. Oh. That command does not work. Okay, I don't have a command, apparently, but sorry about that. I guess, yeah, we are playing Racing Kings. You can check out the rules here. Oh wait, it's exclamation mark rules. Sorry, I am just trying to remember my... Anyways, here are the rules. Sorry about that, everyone. But, yeah. Okay, so what did we have in this game? Luca is not amused. So, let me see where we left off. Bishop d3, rook to c7 by IMakeManyMistakes. King to h3, king to b4. Rook g6, though. Hangs the piece. And, yeah, Artem Medvedev just blundering his knight there. Only acceptable variant is chess 960. Nah, come on. Plenty of fun in the more exotic variants as well. Not just Racing Kings. Also the other ones. Anyways, queen to g1. Yeah, black just has a really solid position with the queen on f4. You cannot dislodge that piece at all. And chess 960 is just standard chess. It's too boring. We want to have fun here. Racing kings. I do get queen to g4. But even then, the bishop on d3 is hanging as soon as you play king to h4. Bishop's diagonal is still in place. And though there is no immediate way of developing the d2 knight, I guess black is still comfortable here. Queen on f4 is just such a strong piece. And there's no way to save this this bishop. Do you try to play, for example, rook d6 or d5 just to protect this? I don't think Bobby Fischer. Who invented chess 960? That's a good question. I don't think it was Bobby Fischer, was it? I mean, of course he popularized the variant, but Racing Kings was invented by I remember it, but I don't know how to pronounce his name. So you can look that up. It was also invented quite a couple of decades ago. About this position, black is just so comfortable here. Knight to f3. Okay, just dropping the piece back. Now what's the point? Yeah, I'm not sure what IMakeManyMistakes was doing there. This just hangs the piece, and at that point, I guess there's no threat on d3 either. So IMakeManyMistakes, just blundering in the time scramble. Black now has an even middle game. Comfortable position. Nothing to worry about here. Artem Medvedev still playing on with the white pieces, because okay, material is even, so you definitely have something to fight for, but I doubt that this is going to be enough. You kind of need to hold on here as white. Make sure not to lose the d3 bishop. Queen f4. Again, preventing king to g3. Okay, king g3 now. Please don't repeat. Come on. I want a bit more spirit than that. Okay, like it would win the match for IMakeManyMistakes if he just went for the repetition here. But still, you can play for a win here. Captures first, perhaps. Capture now. And does this work? Queen to g5. Not sure about that placement. You do get king c5, but the rook is hanging. And IMakeManyMistakes, who had such a comfortably winning position, could have gone for the draw. But now black just dropped the rook, and it's pretty much game over. Now, you need to avoid... I said you need to avoid this, because now it's just a draw again. Oh dear. Oh dear. Yeah, that's an interesting finish to the series. But now that the game is drawn in 31 moves, the score is 5.5 to 3.5 in favor of IMakeManyMistakes. Congratulations, and really nice match as well by Artem Medvedev. He had chances towards the end here. After queen g4, I did say black definitely favorable, regardless of what happens. Even if you shuffle for a bit, then this is just... I mean, black is much better here. Rook takes. I did call it out. First capture, especially here, would have been a thing. But yeah, I guess this still kind of works. Rook captures because if king takes, then the queen is hanging. And then rook to d8 is a bit, I would have expected. Yeah, I mean, it's not that easy. To c5, and then just forgetting that, oh, whoops, the rook is hanging. I should have gone for king to a5, if anything. But at this point, white just has a comfortably winning position. Needed to convert. And yeah, playing this did not work, unfortunately, because you can pin the queen and then threaten to capture with the bishop, allowing black to catch up. One crucial move there. So, easier mate would have been d6, apparently. Oh, and this just wins the queen as well. That's a fancy way to go about things. But yeah, unfortunately, Artem Medvedev unable to convert the winning position there. So, that is the end of our match. I will just update my bracket real quick.